Hey everyone, Ashley here, and today I'm going to be talking about sewing on patches. As you see, I have a bag that I use a lot, and I've got some patches on here. They give my bag a little bit more personality. So whether you're wanting to add patches to clothing or accessories, it's really simple. It just takes a little bit of time, and all you really need is whatever you're wanting to sew on. So this is a patch. It has a sticky back to it, but you don't have to have that because we're going to sew it, and a hand sewing needle and some thread. So go ahead and grab your materials and meet me back here. So to get started, I went ahead and cut a piece of thread about 20 inches long, and we're going to double this up. So I just went ahead and aligned the two ends together so that the thread is split into half when we are sewing. And it's going to be a shorter amount of thread we're working with at one time, but it's going to be a little bit stronger than if it were just one thread by itself. So to tie a knot in the end, it's pretty simple. So we have our thread in one finger and then the other ends of the thread in our other. Cross these over. So imagine like a circle. We've created a little circle, and then we're going to wind the thread over the needle a few times. You could do it about 5 or 6 times. And then kind of hold the wraps a little tightly and then just pull them down. And that is a knot to get you started. Okay, so we have our thread ready to go, and as you'll notice, I have a white background on this patch, so I'm going to use thread that matches it. So if your thread gets a little messy or your stitches are messy, you don't really notice it as much. So thinking about where we're going to put our patch. As you can see, I have a few on here already. There's just some embroidery that's already on the bag. And this is an example of how you would want to secure your patch before you start to sew. You can use straight pins or safety pins. These are basically just going to hold this in place so that you can stitch without having to worry about keeping the patch exactly where you want it. Keep in mind, if you're going to be stitching on pockets or the inside of the bag, you want to make sure that you're just getting the inside of this pocket and you're not going to be sewing both of these layers together. So be mindful of that. Alright, now we are ready to get started. So we're going to take our needle and thread. Keep in mind, this is not going to do the whole circle of the perimeter of this patch, but it's going to get us started. I prefer to work with smaller lengths of thread instead of working with really long ones and then getting them caught on things and having knots. So I'm going to rotate this to where it's easy to get to. So see, I can move my hand in and out pretty easily here. And this is also a good step when you're sewing patches if you want to use a thimble. This is exactly what these are for. So we're going to start from the back side, and just to get an idea of where your needle is, you can kind of poke it through and see like, oh, okay, I'm close, but I'm not quite there yet. So I just need to move over a little bit closer, and we're here. I'm also going to be trying to stay within the white boundary around. And it's okay if you go off a little. No one will really notice. So pull it up. Now we're taut with the knot in the fabric, and we're going to start stitching. So be careful not to poke yourself on the inside when you poke that needle down. And we're just going to go back and forth, stitching from inside to outside, and then pulling it all the way out, then going back to the inside again. And continue all the way around. Woohoo! I think we're finished. So I'm going to poke this back through, and let's check on our stitches. Oh yeah, we are ready. So again, they don't have to be perfect. No one's really gonna be looking at this side of the fabric. And to finish, I'm just gonna be sewing in the same place again a few times, just to add some tension here and stability so that the thread doesn't just come out on its own. Alright, that's it. You trim this as far as you need to, and ta-da! New patch for my bag. Oh yeah.
GarageBand. Here's how to do a simple song. Open GarageBand. Then on the cross, create a new song. Screen will come up with instruments. I like to start out with the drums. And there are a lot of options for drums. In this case, I'm going to use a simple acoustic drum set that I will play with my fingers. You will have a choice to change to different drum sets, but I'm going to stick with the SoCal set. Make sure we turned the metronome on. I'm going up to settings so that we can select a tempo. You can either tap the tempo in with your finger, or you can use the arrows to change it to whatever you want. And that will be the tempo of the song. And then we're going to back out of that. And if you just hit the screen, that will close. These are some other options you won't need, but they're there and something you can explore later. So we back out. Now we got the drum set. If you need any help, you can always hit that little question mark and it will label stuff on the screen. Anyway, here we go. We're going to hit the red button. It will count us in. And I play a simple little drum part. It's just mostly the bass drum and the snare. Then we're going to go back to the track and double tap the track, hit settings, and you'll notice the word quantization. It is on, and it's 16th notes. That'll keep your drums in time. So the track will probably sound better than you played it, which is a good thing. Next, I'm going to create another drums track using the same set. That way I can play the hi-hat and cymbals. Once again, hit the red dot. Play whatever you want. And when it is done, the part will automatically be quantized. And now you have cymbals on one track and some drums on the first track. Next, I'm going to add another track. Press the plus sign at the bottom left of the screen to add another track. And this time, we're going to add a bass. You can select different basses. There's synthesizer basses, electric basses. In this case, I'm going to use this Hofner Beatles style bass. And then we're going to click back to the tracks, double click the track you just recorded. You'll see settings on the top right. Oh, I'm sorry. In this case, we're going to edit because we have a wrong note in there. The last note that I played was wrong and it's too short. So if you hit edit, it'll bring up this screen. You can drag the note where you want it to be, as well as making it longer, which I will do in a second. So now I'm putting the note where I want it to be, so it's the correct note. Then you simply touch the note and drag it a little bit to make it longer. Now you'll notice some of the notes may not be perfectly lining up with the grid, so we go to settings, double tap, settings, quantization, and I'm setting it to 16th notes. And then all you have to do is tap the screen and you're out. So what happens is now the bass notes are on time and I've corrected the one wrong note. Now I'm going to add another track, this time a guitar. I'm switching to the acoustic. We hit the record button and go. It's kind of fun playing with these instruments because you actually have to play them as opposed to having a piano keyboard. Makes it more exciting. Anytime you don't like what you did, all you have to do is hit that little back arrow up on the top and it'll erase it. Once again, I'm quantizing this using the settings. There you have it. Everything is perfectly timed. Finally, one more track I'm going to add is a keyboard. And there are a lot of sounds that you can select. And so the thing to do is just go through them until you find what you like. I decided to use this rather loud lead sound. And so if you don't like what you did, put that little arrow thing up on the top and it will erase it and you can do it again. Go back to the tracks and once again I quantize that track, but you get everything in time. But the next problem, it's not really a problem, but something you will have to do is open up the mixing board and adjust the volume. Do that by sliding that track area to the right with your finger, and then to get more microscopic with it, to get more editing ability, click the mixing board icon at the top of the screen and you can add effects. Like, notice a quick reverb and some echo on that feedback, which makes it sound a lot better. And I brought the cymbals down a little bit on the drums. You can select whatever track you want, and each track will have its own set of parameters that you can change. Mostly what you want to do is just experiment and have fun, because there is a lot you can do with GarageBand for sure. When you're finally done, close the file by hitting the icon on the left top. Then if you click the title of the song, you can name it whatever you want and say done. And there it is. You've just recorded a song on GarageBand.
Materials needed for this workshop are scissors, a plastic straw, a plastic bottle, a metal straw, and some tape. Creating a hole in the bottle cap will be necessary for adding the metal straw. Use caution when using tools like hammers or screwdrivers. The straw will be the base of your rocket. Cut your straw into 1/3. Using the 3 pieces of tape, you will now assemble your rocket. Use the first piece of tape and apply to the straw at a 45-degree angle. Work your way up. This is to seal off one end of the straw to keep air pressure from going out. It will also serve as the tip. Using the second piece of tape to serve as a wing, place your straw directly in the middle. Take the other piece of tape and go ahead and apply it as well to the middle to seal off the wings. You have now assembled a standard rocket. The bottle will be used to launch the rocket. Fasten the cap onto the bottle. Insert the metal straw. And use the tape to secure the straw so that there are no air leaks. If the rocket does not fit loosely onto the metal straw, you will need to take the scissors and make 2 incisions. The rocket should fit on the metal straw, like so. When launching the rocket, make sure the metal straw is facing up and apply pressure with both hands. Try assembling different variations of your rocket to see if you can get different results.
How I win.
Hey everyone, this is Seth. I'm a mentor at Studio NPL, and this is the last video I've planned in a series about how to make your own podcast at home using free tools and things you may already have laying around. The first 2 videos in this series were about how to record and edit your own podcast by yourself and with friends, so all there is left to do is to publish it for people to be able to find it and listen. Like the other videos in this series, I'll show you a couple different ways to post your podcast online, and each has their own benefits and drawbacks. To do this, essentially what you have to do is host your file online and then submit an RSS feed of your file hosting to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other major podcast services. So I'll explain a couple of these things before showing you some ways to tackle them. First, I'll explain a podcast host. Essentially, this allows you to store your files online. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and all the major podcast directories don't actually store your files. They just kind of gather them and allow people to stream and download it from your hosting site. So hosting your podcast online is a major step to make it accessible to your listeners. Next up is RSS feed. RSS originally stood for Rich Site Summary, and now it also means Really Simple Syndication. RSS feeds are mainly used for news websites and blogs as a way to notify subscribers whenever new content is posted instead of having to go to those websites manually each day. This is also a key component for podcasting because it allows podcast directories to be notified whenever your hosting site has a new episode. So it'll get the episode title, episode description, the artwork, runtime, and the file itself, and it's able to compile that all for people on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and other places to listen to podcasts. Most podcast hosting services cost a monthly rate to be able to store your episodes, as well as pay for the data transfer of people downloading it and listening to it, but there are some free alternatives to this. 2 free options that I found that seem to be the most user-friendly are Spreaker and Anchor, but in exchange for free use of their platform, they do have the ability to post advertisements in your content without much control over it from you. Like most free services and platforms on the internet, the terms and conditions exchange part of your content ownership to the platform so that you can use it. There are other free options for hosting your podcast online, but many of them limit the amount of storage that you have for the amount of episodes or how long these episodes are hosted. Some people use YouTube since it has free video storage that's unlimited, but then your podcast isn't hosted on any of the major podcast directories. The 2 free options that I found are the best to me because of the unlimited storage and also directly posting to different podcast directories and simplifying that process. The service Anchor also has a mobile app that allows you to record and edit a podcast directly in the app, and then you can post it immediately. They also have ways for you to record with friends over this app too. Before I walk through signing up for one of these services and getting your podcast posted, you need a couple things. First, a name for your podcast, You need at least one episode, an episode title and description, and also podcast artwork. To be accepted on major podcast directories, you need artwork that is a 1:1 aspect ratio, so the shape of a square, and you need a high resolution image for it, so at least 3000 pixels by 3000 pixels. So I have the website for Spreaker pulled up in front of me. I'm on their homepage, and I'm going to go to their plans and pricing option. Here you see, of course, they have different paid options for more professional podcasters or anything like that, and they have more features with each of these, including like more statistics and more customization and things like that. But for just uploading a podcast and getting it distributed on major platforms, the free speech option is the one that you want to click join on. So here's where you can sign up for an account, and you want to make sure you read any terms and conditions or privacy policies just to make sure that you know what they're doing with your content and you know how much of your content you own when you post it on a free service like this. So once you sign up for this, I'll show you the next page. So once you make your account, it takes you to this screen, and to upload your podcast, just go to the Create tab at the top. And so they give you a few options. You can make your first podcast. They also have an app that allows you to record and publish episodes or do live stream podcasts that you can use. Or if you already have one and you want to import it to this service, you can do it by using this import feature. But we're just going to go to create our first podcast. So in the podcast creation page, it's just asking you to put in a bunch of information like the title for your podcast. Language and category are both ways that allow podcast directories to categorize it a little bit better and make people find it more easily based off similar interests, or if it's related to another podcast they like. And obviously language, depending on what language podcasts you want to listen to. You upload a cover image, and then also down here at the bottom, the description is basically just telling people what kind of podcast you have. So click create. So now we're at this dashboard for the podcast. Now that we've created it, you can upload episodes with this yellow button, or you can directly record episodes straight to this website. I've already uploaded a sample one. It's actually the sample podcast that I edited in the first video about how to make and edit them. I'm going to go to the options here. You want to make sure that your podcast is published. Sometimes it initially uploads as a draft just in case you want to edit anything. But once you're ready to publish, click publish. That will be at the bottom of the screen. And then for visibility, you also want it to be public so that anybody can listen to it. And then once all that information is to your liking, we're ready to distribute the podcast. So I'll go over here to this distribution panel. From here, you have all the major podcast directories, and they each have different requirements to submit. For Apple Podcasts, you have to log into their Podcast Connect portal using your Apple ID and manage it that way. For Spotify, I was easily able to click submit, and it had a Spotify page for it. And it's already uploaded to Spreaker's podcast directory. Another major one is Google Podcasts and iHeartRadio. And any of these other ones that you want to distribute to, it cannot hurt you to be on as many platforms as possible. Now, each of these podcast distributors do have different requirements for the amount of time it takes for them to get posted, so it may take a little while for it to be ready to go. It may not be immediate, but that's the easiest way to distribute all of your podcasts using this free tool. Now you're just able to log in through there and upload any future episodes you want to post, and they should be able to be found on all those other platforms. So that's about it for this video series on how to record and edit your podcast at home and then distribute it as simply as possible. But if you have any questions that you think of, put them in the comments and I'll see if I can't answer them for you. I'll put some links at the end of this video for some of the resources that I used, as well as some other lists and articles that were useful to me that may inform your decisions on which platforms to use or any other choices that you have to make along the way. And thanks for watching.
Hey everybody, I'm Keech Rainwater. I'm your guest mentor today for Studio NPL, and we're going to talk a little bit today about sound, and specifically sound for video, because I think that 50% of the quality of a video is the sound. Because if you're watching a video and it has bad sound, nobody wants to watch that video. You're just going to lose your audience. And so I think it's really important to have really good quality sound going into your video, whether it's music or dialogue, people talking, or sound effects or anything like that. I think it's real important that the sound be really, really nice. Now, it's really hard to get good sound on a video. It takes practice and it takes a lot of trial and error and a little bit of skill. So today we're going to try to break it down into just a few different ways of thinking about it. One of the ways that you can get sound, that's probably one of the most easy ways, is called single system sound. And that's where, like I'm doing right now, I have this lapel mic on here and it's picking my sound up and it's coming through this Zoom recorder, which is a digital recorder right here. And then I'm just coming out of the headphone jack right over into my camera. So I don't have to worry about syncing anything up or anything. It's just going straight into the camera. Now the problem with that is you have to make sure that the sound going into the camera isn't distorted. Distorted is where if I had the headphone jack up really, really high on this recorder, or the microphone was too hot, too loud, and going into the camera and it distorts. It sounds like it's just like breaking up and it's really terrible. The way to combat that is to have a good set of headphones. When you're behind the camera, you have some headphones on to be able to hear it, and also make sure that you look at the meters on the camera to see that they are not in the red. You don't want them to be in the red. So there's several different ways to do it. That's single system sound. Now, double system sound is where you have two separate entities. You have a sound like this Zoom recorder, let's say, with a chip inside, a memory card, and then you're hitting record on that, and you're also recording video separately. And you would have something, in a lot of cases, you can have something professional like this slate right here, which is a digital slate that you really, all we would be using it for if we were doing that is just for the sound and the look of this, like that. So, which you can easily do it with just somebody clapping. And what I like to do a lot of times is just before I start, if I'm doing double system sound, is just to go 3, 2, 1, and maybe a little audible thing about what it is, so you know what you're listening to on the recorder, what it matches with the visual. So, so the lapel mic is basically what I'm using here. Is this a long about a 20-foot long, thin little cable that usually goes up your shirt, usually up the actor's shirt or whoever's going to be in front of the camera, and then it clips onto here. And you got to make sure that it's sort of pointing up at their face, and you get good quality sound. That's probably the best way to mic somebody, and you get the best quality. Another way is what's called a shotgun mic, which is this right here. If you don't have one of these, or you don't want to have a wire trailing everywhere you go, and you're sort of, the talent is just walking around, you want to pick up the sound from behind the camera, you got to make sure that this shotgun mic is pointing straight at the person talking, and as close as you can get it to the people talking without being in frame where you see it in the camera. And that's tricky sometimes. You got to kind of practice ahead of time and make sure that this isn't, you're not seeing this in the edge of the frame, and get it just far away enough to where it's not in the frame, but it's close enough to the talent where it's going to pick up their voice. And again, not distorted. You want to make sure that the sound going in, so you almost have to have an extra person to make sure that the sound is going in there nice and clear. So yeah, that's my little tutorial on getting good sound. Here's another thing you can use. This is a wireless pack. I use this sometimes, but it's not the best system in that sometimes you pick up interference. You know, the person will be talking and you'll hear a little bit of a or something like that. So it's not ideal. It's useful, but it's not ideal. I like to either use a shotgun mic or this lapel mic if the person's going to be sitting still like this. But once again, you got to get really good crisp sound, and you got to make sure that it's loud enough to the people can hear it, and not distorted and not just nasty sounding when your final product is done and you're editing. So this is Keech Rainwater, your guest mentor at Studio NPL. If you have any questions, be sure and submit your questions to studionnpl@gmail.com, and we look forward to seeing you next time.